Here's what happened. Leading up to Saturday, I was battling my burnout beast, and it was tough. Like there's a lot of resistance that was coming up. I was having moments where I was trying to push signals that were coming up from my body and be like, "Oh, I'll get to those later." And those signals for me was realizing that there were certain commitments I wasn't honoring with my business. I wasn't doing that for the majority of the time with these commitments. I noticed that my mind, it pinballs. And so it was pinballing a lot for those days leading up to Saturday, where I was switching between tasks, not staying focused as long as I could for these tasks or as long as I did in the past. And so you can have those moments that can come up for you in the day where you're like, what the hell did I actually really get done? Like, felt like I really didn't make any progress moving forward. And I think about that for my business. And so Saturday was a moment for me to remember I got to pause. And I set that intention for Saturday. I only had like one work task I had to get that I had to do that day, and made sure I did all the prep beforehand to take care of it. But then for the rest of the time that day, I recharged, I recovered. And for me, I did that, and my life partner also did that on that day. And for me, what came through was like, I needed this. This was so needed. I remember having a conversation with her, and we both agreed on like the importance of this recovery and this recharge. And it just was the reminder, because besides that day, and then my anniversary with my life partner earlier in the month, I can't really remember a last day where I consciously took a pause from the intensity of the work. And so what I want to share with you are 3 assumptions that can come up for you. And we got to address these 3 assumptions so that you stop feeling burnout. This is Make Burnout Extinct. I'm Robert David Weeks. Thank you for taking the time to be here. I know you could be doing a bunch of different stuff, a lot of distractions that are out there. So by you being here, that says something. I want to focus on these assumptions. So let's take one deep inhale and then exhale to get settled, get present. So you can focus in on this. So here we go. Deep inhale through the nose. If you want to wiggle it out, dance, stretch it out. I'm going to stretch it out. Release it out. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That feels good. Oh, there we go. All right. Getting settled in, getting present. If you're new here, welcome. If you haven't done it yet, you can subscribe and follow the show for the latest episodes. And I got a few commitments for you I want to get into. The first commitment is to continue to grow this show and the movement that's been built around this one mission of Make Burnout Extinct. It fires me up. So by you subscribing and following, it helps with that commitment. The second commitment I have for you is to be honest with you, to share the full experience to the best of my ability of what it takes to make burnout extinct, so you can know the expectations for what to prepare for. Because when I look back at when I hit my burnout in 2018 after the social media conference where 500 people came together planning it all with a team, leading up to that, I lied so many times. And it created this pressure and this tension in my body that I wasn't addressing. I was trying to suppress it, push it down. And it's one of the main reasons that I hit my burnout. And so honesty is a very important value of mine. And what I want to do with you with this show is to be honest and not just sharing the results, because they're like the 3 simplest forms for the results of Make Burnout Extinct are to feel more energized in your day, to feel connected to that aliveness of life, to feel alive, like not just go through your emotions in your day. And then the third one is to feel excited with this momentum that's being built towards the vision you have for your life, towards optimizing your health. It's all of that, and it's the hard work behind the scenes. It's the putting in the reps. It's those days where you get off track and you have this shame and guilt that bubbles up. It's to honor them and realize that you can move through it. Like realize you can get back on track. Those moments where at the end of the day you feel defeated, and you got to take the time to remember that tomorrow's a new day to reset, and that perfection doesn't exist, but your best exists. And so it's having to tap back into that courage in those moments. And so it's all of those things for setting these expectations for you of what it takes to make burnout extinct. And what I want to do is, to the best of my ability, share with you not only through my own personal experiences, but also through insights I'm gathering from other people's experiences to help you and to realize, for you that it absolutely is possible to make burnout extinct in your life. So thank you for being here. Let's get into it. Today, what I want to talk about are 3 assumptions that can come up when you're feeling scattered, and how to make sure that you're avoiding these assumptions, and instead making sure that you are not fueling burnout, and instead you're able to move through these. Because what I can tell you is all 3 of them are ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Like I noticed with all 3, I've experienced them personally. I have noticed that I waste more energy when when I lean into these assumptions, and it causes me to have to then change my behavior later on. And it's like I'm having to clean up my own mess that I create by thinking that I have to hold on to these assumptions. And so I do want to tell you that if you are feeling like you got a lot going on in your day and your schedule with your business, a lot of these responsibilities, you got to take care of all these other people, you got so much going on where it feels like just this whirlwind, again, the tornado thoughts are happening. I've talked about them before. I want to remind you, you are not alone. And so what I'll do is share with you these 3 assumptions. So you have them right here. We're going to go through each one of these assumptions, dive a little bit deeper, realize how ridiculous they are. And then what I want to share with you too is my own personal experience of navigating all 3 of these. So here they are. The first one is that you think you cannot pause right now. That could be coming up hard for you with all these responsibilities and the shit that piles up. You're like, man, these challenges, like, I just feel I cannot pause right now. And what I'm doing here is the key word is pause, right? Because rest, that could create another sensation in the body for you of like, I'm not supposed to do that. But pause, that seems actually a little bit more inviting and open to, oh, I just got to pause. I can keep the game going, keep it going. So that's what I'm really intentional with that word. And that's something to remember. But pause and rest are like the same thing, literally the same thing. So that could be the first assumption you got. The second assumption I got for you is that you may feel, you have this assumption that if you pause, you're then a failure. That's the assumption that can come up that causes you to not pause. And I so resonate with that on so many different levels deeply. That can be through the messaging I got through the movies I watched growing up as a kid, where you had that hero having to hit rock bottom or even sacrificing their life in order to be recognized and to have done something amazing for positive impact, right? Like that comes up. One movie, Braveheart. That's the one that sticks up. So if that's happening for you, I want you to realize that you're not alone either, if that's an assumption you're experiencing. The third assumption that we're going to get into is then thinking your business will not survive if you pause. That one is where fear can bubble up. And you may be experiencing that right now, even of like this fear where you got bills you got to pay. You have people relying on you. You have all these responsibilities and you just think that like the business is not going to be able to survive if you pause. And I'm here to tell you that's ridiculous to think about. And so before getting into all 3 of them, I want to talk about something that's important for context for you, like what's going on in your day right now. I relate to feeling scattered to this phase in the journey that Chris Williamson spoke about. And if you're not familiar with him, he's the host of the podcast Modern Wisdom. Really like his style, what he has to share, and he talks about how there's this phase. I'm gonna paraphrase it, but how you can think about it is a rocket ship launch. So with a rocket ship launch, at the beginning, there's this intense amount of energy required to lift the rocket off the ground, where the gravitational pull is really intense. And so as a rocket ship launches, you can think about that for you is like as you have something new coming into your life, and I relate it back to this podcast launching a little over 7 months ago, and then with this mission now, having the Make Burnout Extinct, the workshops that are coming up, also the work of supporting you in how to stay consistent with your habits to optimize your health. Like this has felt like that beginning rocket ship launch for me. It's changed the trajectory of my life. I have come to realize just how strong this mission is in me and how it is a spiritual journey for me based off my own burnout. And it gets me fired up to be able to share all this information and share these insights with you so that you can realize that it is possible for you to make burnout extinct. And so with that, that's where so much energy gets poured into this. And with that, it's recognizing, okay, this is that phase, but it's not going to be a phase that's my permanent reality. And that's the reminder for you is whatever you got going on right now for feeling scattered, you might think it's your permanent reality, and it's not. It's temporary. And I'm reminded of this quote from Alex Ramosi, another person that just fires me up for what he has to say, where he says that now is not forever. That hit when I heard that. When I heard that the first time, it just resonated so deeply that this is temporary for the phase that you're in. And so, whatever that is for you, what's going to be important to realize is that you got to leverage ways to reset and to change what you're doing for those behaviors in your day and the habits in your day in order to get back to being focused, getting back to feeling like you're moving forward and making progress towards the goals you set out, towards the vision you set out with the business, with your life, with your health. And what's important to realize is that there are levels in which you can pause. I think that's so important to be able to realize that it's not just one size fits all. Another person I really admire, John Butcher, he says it great where he's like, there is no one right way, but there is a right way for you. And it's discovering what that looks like. And there can be this all or nothing approach in life. You might be experiencing that now where you're like, oh, I got to be all in or I'm all out. There's no in between. And that's just not true when it comes to living your life. Like, you're going to have these moments where you're going to feel more energized and these moments where you're going to feel more drained. And so for this first assumption of feeling like you cannot pause because of what you got going on, I resonate for that. It's remembering, what stage are you in? Are you at the beginning of the rocket ship launch? Or with what you got going on, now that you've put in all that effort and that energy, you are a little bit further ahead. And with the rocket ship, it's like it's less effort required. And it's just realizing, being able to take a big picture view of like, oh yeah, I can pause right now. And what I want to get into to help you out, because it can vary where you're at in this chapter, if you think about it with the rocket ship launch, is that even if you're at the beginning where you feel you got to pour everything into this, so much energy towards what it is you're building and making happen for yourself, all of it's not worth it if you hit burnout. I'm here to tell you that there's just so much unnecessary suffering that came up when I was headed towards hitting burnout, and when I hit it, that I wouldn't want anyone to experience. Like, it's just, I believe it's unnecessary suffering that gets piled on. We can get the message in the suffering and the message in what comes up for the challenges, and then change the behavior that we're doing, the habits that we're implementing in our day. And so when it comes to these levels, that's what I want to get into, is for thinking you can't pause. I want to tell you it's ridiculous, because if you don't have those moments to recharge for the body, then it's going to eventually hit burnout. And then your recovery time is going to be so much longer. I go back to, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And so the more you can leverage at the beginning, these moments to recharge, then the faster your recovery time is going to be, ultimately, to then continue to get out there and move towards the vision you have for your life, towards these goals you set out to accomplish, towards the dreams that you have for the possibilities for your life, and being able to tap into your potential and developing that potential even further. And so with these levels, how you can think about it is, you can either pause in the day itself, or you can pause for a whole day in the week. And that comes back to important strategy with any habit, for optimizing your health, is remembering that flexibility, you can have flexibility with this. And it's flexibility in the time, flexibility in the habit itself. So with the pause for the time, that's the one where you can add flexibility, where you can pause in between your work tasks. That's how you can be able to rest and recharge. And so the example I provide for that one would be, you finish getting out a series of emails, and you start to notice that you're scattering. Your mind, like how I notice it for sensations is really important, is my mind pinballs all over the place. And so it's for you identifying, what are your sensations that you notice you're feeling scattered. You came here resonating with it, so you have somewhat of an idea. So when you go through these emails, let's say you have 100 emails, right? Or you have 20 emails or 30 emails, and you're having to write responses to all of them. Or you have certain set responses for certain types of emails, or you just notice that there's emails you can just delete. You can get to a certain point where then you're noticing your sensations that are coming up, that you're feeling scattered. Maybe you get distracted and you stop going through the emails, you go to a different task. You maybe scroll on social media. You might try to watch, I'm thinking of watch a show. You might have all these different ways to distract yourself. Those can be signals for you that your mind is pinballing. And for me, it's pinballing. Like, I go from that task to then even another work task. That for me feels like I'm scattered. When that comes up, that's a moment for you to recognize this is time for you to pause. And what you can do is you can step away, get out of the space that you're in with the work task. And one is coming back to what's a burnout proof habit that is going to help you in this moment. And what I mean by burnout proof habits, I've talked about them before, but it's habits that are energizing for you, that optimize your health. There are ways to make sure that you are energizing your body. The go-to one for me for one of those habits is movement, creating movement, because that literally produces energy in the body. And so I know, okay, this is a time for me to pause and go out for a 5-minute walk. That helps me to focus in, take a break for my mind. Then when my mind feels recharged, I can come back with clarity as to what the direction I have to go into next. And usually what comes up is there might be you go back to the email example, there can be an email where you don't really know how to respond to it yet. And so you're getting really frustrated with how you want to word this. That's where you can go out, go for the walk. Clarity will form. You can then even leverage something like AI to support you in figuring out the best way to write this based off of your unique style. And you create these different connection points for solutions for yourself. And then you're able to get back at it and continue to move forward. Because the issue is if you feel scattered and you keep trying to push through and you realize you cannot pause, then what happens is you become even more exhausted. Like you're pushing more energy towards this. And what happens is then that becomes really draining for you. And then you can have the tornado thoughts happen and you're like, oh man, there's no way I can do this. Like I'm so frustrated at myself. Like, why the hell can I get this done? It should be so simple. And that's where then stress bubbles up and this overwhelm bubbles up. And then it just causes a whole big mess that you got to clean up. And that's where it just becomes ridiculous. So notice those sensations, and then you can stop and take the pause in the day. Then you can think about pause in your week. So when it comes back to that rocket ship launch, you could be at a point with your business right now where your bills are being paid, you're getting taken care of, you understand, you have clarity of the path you're moving towards, and so you can move into like, oh, I can have this moment to pause for a full day. And what happens is if you can give yourself that day and actively use it for recovery and to recharge from the work that you're doing, that's where then inspiration can come through. That's where you can create these points of connection for yourself of where you can move forward for strategy, where you can go to the next level. And what happens is then when you have that opportunity to rest, go back to pause, then what happens is you're able to move even faster in the next days afterwards. And so instead of just working, at like half speed, you're working doubling your usual speed. Because when you aren't taking a full day off and you just are noticing you're feeling scattered throughout your week, you're not being as effective as you could be. And you aren't able to, I think about that, you're not able to see things clearly. And so you might not be able to create those connection points that could save you a lot of time, a lot of effort. And what happens is then you just continue to get dragged by the burnout beast or hitting burnout. And you just feel like you're trying to stay above water. It's the sensations that can come up, which again, is a ridiculous strategy. It's just going to be more of a mess that you got to clean up. And so this is a moment to come back to an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And so figuring out in your week, what is that day that you can have that moment to pause, and picking out that day and realizing that could change as the month goes on. You can switch up what that day looks like. So that comes back to this first assumption where thinking you cannot pause. And I will tell you that it helps you to clean up all those messes when you can pause throughout the day. And, throughout the week, you can have at least one day to pause to help you to notice what are those connection points that you're missing and to help you with that momentum to keep moving forward. The second assumption I want to get into for you is thinking you're going to be a failure if you pause. How I relate back to it is the movies I watched as a kid. I mean, there's two that stick out in my mind. First one is Braveheart, where at the end, the character dies. Mel Gibson, he's dying. Just, intense and brutal for what was going on at the end of the movie with the torture he went through. And then Gladiator is the other one with Russell Crowe, who dies at the end of the movie. And so I kept getting this message of like, I have to go through intense amounts of suffering and pain. And then to the point where I have to really destroy my health in order to create this impact and feel like a hero. And so, of course, then I'm going to get this assumption that if I pause, that's considered a failure because I got to push through the intensity and the suffering, the pain. And this is a fine line that comes up with making burnout extinct because you're going to have natural resistance that can come up from the body. I've talked about it before with anything new that can create uncertainty for the body. And when you're implementing these habits that are actually there to optimize your health, you can have natural resistance and an urge to, and it can create this pain that can bubble up, this resistance, this anger that causes you to not stick with it for putting in the reps for these habits. And what happens is if you aren't able to move through the second phase of the habit formation process, the angry phase, then you aren't able to get to that autopilot phase where it becomes less friction to show up and put the reps in for these habits that are there to optimize your health. And what happens is then you are getting dragged by the burnout beast back to your old ways and feeling that exhaustion, which is that first red flag of burnout, chronic exhaustion. And you are constantly letting this stress build up in the body and this overwhelm build up in the body. And so then you're just going to go towards hitting that burnout where it becomes harder to then make those changes to your behavior and to your habits. It can be difficult because you are feeling so tired. And that could be a situation that you're in now. And what I'll tell you is that now is a better time to make those changes. Like now is the right time. Make it happen for yourself. No matter what type of situation or how far you feel you've gone towards feeling burnout, this is the time to make those changes. And if you are not in that state where you feel like you're really close to burnout, then it's great to have this time to really set yourself up for even more success. If that's in your business, with your health, and with your overall life. Like this is the moment to set yourself up for the reps of putting in these reps. And with pausing, that is a habit that you're building in itself. And what happens is throughout the day, it's not you're not a failure for pausing. You could think about it as a genius for pausing, because what happens in the body throughout the day with these, work tasks that you got going on and things that are happening is that you're creating open stress loops. Those happen. Looking at your emails can create an open stress loop. Someone that replies back to you that's like pisses you off, or not, like let me put it this way. Maybe it says certain things that you're like, why would you say that? And that pisses you off. It can create a stress response from the body. Maybe you have a project that just did not follow, like someone did not follow through on what they had to get done in that project, where or someone emailed you late at night making certain changes to it, and then now it's you have to figure out how you're going to make this work today to make it happen. So what happens is these stress loops are opened. Our body, if these stress loops don't get closed, they're going to fill up in the body. And you can think about the body like a balloon. And I've talked about it before, where with a balloon, it can fill up with air. And so for the body can fill up with a certain amount of stress, a certain amount of this overwhelm. But it gets to a point where if you are not able to release this out of the body, then the balloon, if you don't release the air out of the balloon, it pops. For the body, that's hitting burnout. And so when you can have moments to pause, what's happening is you're a genius because you're having moments to release the tension and the stress out of the body. And it's going back to, with pausing, figuring out what's then the burnout proof habit that is there to optimize your health in that certain situation. And I'm always going to come back to movement because it's like such an important one on a foundational level. You have so many different forms and exercises of movement you can do, but that is a way to take a pause for your mind and be able to reconnect with your body. And also through movement, you're literally producing energy in the body, and that can help you when you're connecting back to your body and the emotions that are bubbling up. You can process them by understanding what is the message that your emotion is trying to tell you. And I learned this from John Butcher, which is like there is always a message in those emotions. And so when you're pissed off with an email that you got, what is the message there? What is the action or the change that has to happen here to be able to move through this? And when you have the moments to pause, you can actually take time to like literally think about it and be like, all right, what is this trying to tell me? And then make those changes. And once you close those stress loops throughout the day, it's like releasing that air out of the balloon. And so then your body's staying at this level where it's not getting close to hitting burnout. And you can even start to propel it more towards making burnout extinct, where you are feeling energized by the end of the day. You are feeling like you're connected to the aliveness of life throughout your day. And you are feeling excited about this momentum that's happening for you in your business. And I would say that's genius. That's absolutely genius. So that takes care of assumption number 2. Now what I want to get into is assumption number 3, which is that your business won't survive this if you pause. And what I'm here to tell you is that there's a high probability, very high probability. I mean, you can never say perfect because, again, perfection doesn't exist. But there's a high probability that your business is going to be okay tomorrow if you take one day to rest. Your business is going to be okay if you take 30 minutes to pause. Going back to, take away rest if that's creating some intense charges right now for you, but pause. You can take 30 minutes. You can take a minute. You can take 5 minutes. If you don't have that, then what are you doing? What's life all about for you? Like, that might be a moment to recognize, like, what the hell am I doing? Like, this is ridiculous. I'm just going through my motions. And it can be really easy to get into that rut, to get into that routine, because there's safety there. What is familiar can feel safe for the body, even if it's something that is draining for you. Even if it's something that is a situation that creates pain for you or overwhelming sensations, the unknown can feel so much scarier. The unknown of what's possible for your life and all these doorways that could open up and these new levels that you could go on, that can be terrifying. And I get it. Like, for me, I got messaging growing up as a kid where I'm like, oh, the successful people are assholes. Like, the successful people, they're just terrible human beings. Like, I got that messaging in my immediate environment growing up as a kid of like, stop, they're all terrible, evil people. And it's just not true. It is absolutely not true. I can tell you that from personal experience, meeting people that I looked at as successful, having conversations, realizing they're human beings, and realizing they got their own shit and challenges they're dealing with, and that they're not evil people. And so when it comes back to survival, like, you have to remember that these moments, 5 minutes, a minute, 30 minutes, your business is going to be able to survive. And you have to move through this natural resistance that can come up with change. Changing the routine, changing the dynamics in your day, naturally resistance can come up because it's something new for the body. And that can create uncertainty. And I've talked about that before. I said earlier, it's like the uncertainty that can create this stress response from the body and this fear response where the body is then not sure what to do. That is where your body, you can experience this anger that bubbles up. And that is where you can say, okay, you think something's wrong and you get pulled back to your old ways of like continuing to just show up and keep moving through the different tasks you got to get done and staying scattered and not being as productive and as effective as you could be. And what I want to remind you to really hit this home is that you think about it for professional athletes. Like, I'm a big fan of football, and I think about that with these professional athletes, like, they're resting. They're resting in the game. When you got offense on the field, defense is resting, pausing, when the defense is on there, offense is pausing. You got special teams on there, the offense and defense. There's some players that play on the special teams too, and on offense or defense, but like, you're having these times to rest in the game. And then after the game, there's moments to pause, to rest. It's important. Like, I go back to actually Chris Bumstead. He's a 5-time classic physique Mr. Olympia. Or no, 6-time. Sorry, 6-time. And he talks about one of his huge mistakes he made was not taking time for a rest day when he was working out. Like, he would work out 7 days a week, intense, 3 hours, and he would have to deal with injuries. And what happened was when he rested, that's actually what helped his muscles to grow. And we can miss that in our day-to-day of like, oh yeah, this is the time to be able to grow. I need these moments to reflect, to notice the patterns, to make the necessary changes to the behaviors and to the habits that I'm doing in my day so that I can move towards making burnout extinct. It happens sometimes. But I want to tell you, if you aren't able to take that time and you think your business isn't going to survive, it eventually won't, because you're going to hit burnout. And how I define burnout is a major life transition that is forced on you by your body. And that could be your business not surviving. So give yourself the best chance that you can to keep moving forward and staying in the game. And what I want to tell you, if you haven't heard it yet today, is that I believe in you. You're absolutely capable of moving through these assumptions, reframing them, and realizing how ridiculous they are. To actually help you to move towards making burnout extinct is to let go of these assumptions. And you are capable of listening to those signals from your body, to recognize when you are moving towards burnout and make those changes in those behaviors and those habits, coming back to your burnout proof habits. I had other conversations you can check out for identifying your specific burnout proof habits, but it's recognizing that you are capable and it is possible for you to make burnout extinct. And you got this.